Good evening and welcome to ELOSOFUMARTAKES. This is our 44th take. I am your host, Barry Duplessis, as always, live from the Casa Cueva studios of Euless, Texas. I'm so excited to be bringing you a very special take here on our 44th take. It's going to be absolutely outstanding. Really excited to have two of my favorite people in the world. Seriously, sincerely. They're already laughing at me as I say that. But two of my favorite people in this world, guys I get to smoke cigars with, guys I get to talk everything from sports to politics to Danica Patrick's dating habits. We talk about everything. It's absolutely fantastic. I am pleased to introduce Mr. Kyle Schmeltzle, formerly of the Ticket here in DFW and renowned educator of young minds and coach at in the Irving Independent School District. So he is fraught with knowledge. And he also teaches middle school, so everybody needs to give him a standing ovation every time he walks into a room. And then, of course, the return of Phil Schmitz, who was on our Daytona 500, take. And a special thank you, before I say hi to you gentlemen formally, a special thank you to Jim Stanko, who was on our Kentucky Derby take. It's just a special takes team effort all around, who was able to make sure that Kyle got on tonight. We were having some technical difficulties early on, so really fantastic effort, guys. And so Kyle, Phil, how are you guys doing tonight?
Good, Bear. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you having me on. We've talked about it for a few months, but it's nice to finally come to fruition tonight.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you on. Phil, how, you doing all right? You're kind of quiet now. Did something happen in the race?
No, I'm not even watching it. I think, Boyer's out, so I could care less. No, everything, I got no complaints. Ready to talk football, ready to talk perhaps anything else that comes in between this session. It'd be fun. But yeah, very excited for football starting Thursday, and of course for everyone else, Sunday, Monday. Oh yeah, y'all play Thursday. That's right.
Thursday will be special indeed.
Thursday will be special. So, as Phil just alluded, he said you guys are playing Thursday night, and that's because the reason I asked Kyle to join this broadcast tonight was because Kyle is sincerely and honestly, because I've known him for long enough to know this is not bullshit. He is a lifelong Philadelphia Eagles fan, and as everybody knows who follows the NFL, the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl not too long ago, just a fun couple months, in fact.
Finally.
Even though one of your cornerbacks, Malcolm Jenkins, is actually already tired of hearing it. So apparently, according to some news sources, he's like, "I want the banners down. We got a job to do. It's all about this year," which I kind of like the attitude. I'm not gonna lie. But Kyle,
complacent.
Say that again.
I said I do. Don't get complacent. Don't be satisfied after one. I like that attitude as well.
It's fantastic, man. It's totally counter to the hipster yuppie culture that exists today. So I'm all about it, man. I'm all about it. So Kyle, you're in for that too, Kyle. Just Phil, just rip them all down. Rip all the banners down. Let's start anew every year. Don't even care.
Well, let's enjoy this banner.
I think you should. I wonder how much pressure there is to repeat at the end of the day. I mean, I do remember hearing the Broncos when they repeated. That second year was more of stress more than fun. Like, it was like, we have a job to do. So I do wonder what the pressure is, defending Super Bowl champions, if that adds any pressure.
All right, well,
let's find out. Yeah. So Kyle, tell us what it was like. You got to live the dream, man. You got to live the dream. Your team wins the Super Bowl. Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lifetime of pain, and there's nothing like exercising that demon finally. I mean, seriously, my grandfather was an avid Philadelphia sports fan, and he lived his entire life without ever seeing a Super Bowl. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago. He never got to see a Super Bowl. He saw an NFL championship back in 1960 against, Lombardi, and obviously we had legends like Chuck Benderek, who are just woven into the very fabric of Philadelphia Eagle, legend and folklore. But to wait your entire life for that Super Bowl and going through the pain of 1980 and falling short against the Oakland Raiders, going through the pain of 2004 with a very nervous Donovan McNabb and Terrell Owens, who just made it into the Hall of Fame, and we could talk about that later in his debacle. But, you know, he had pins in his ankles. They fall short 27-24. They lose to the Patriots. So you're thinking, you know, please God, just one in my lifetime, just one. Like I'm not asking for, you know, the Patriots or the Cowboys or the Packers.
You're not asking for a run or anything. You just want something to happen. Dear God, let something happen.
I don't need the whole trophy case filled. Just one.
Exactly.
And so, I mean, even in the Donovan McNabb years, as I was growing up, you would go to an NFC championship and you'd fall short. And that happened multiple times with Andy Reid as the coach. And you're like, are we ever going to break through? Because they had some very talented teams when I was growing up, especially in those early to mid 2000s with, you know, recent Hall of Fame inductee and my favorite player ever, Brian Dawkins. You just wondered if they would ever break through. And then this year, what made it even more special is just how unlikely it was. Because when you think about it, how many NFL teams could lose their franchise quarterback and still make a run like that? Most teams would completely fold and they'd be done for the year. I mean, we've seen that before when your top franchise quarterback, like an Aaron Rodgers, goes down to some horrible injury, or a Tom Brady, it just, the whole thing goes off the tracks. And not only did they lose their starting quarterback in Carson Wentz to a freak knee injury as he scores in the end zone against Phil's Rams, but they also, sorry, I had to go there.
Yeah.
They also,
also
had their starting, you know, future Hall of Fame tackle in Jason Peters go down. Their starting Mike linebacker in Jordan Hicks go down. They had their starting kicker go down. So all these key positions that would normally derail an NFL franchise from being successful, especially in the postseason, they continued onward. And so they got out a victory against Atlanta and then just so unexpectedly destroy the Minnesota Vikings, which I'm sure brought you a lot of joy, Bear, being a Green Bay Packer fan.
Oh, it is absolutely beautiful.
But then
biggest Philadelphia Eagle fan that night, bigger than you.
That's like I get carried away. But yeah, so when they finally made the Super Bowl, what made it really cool is because I have adopted all Texas teams as my own except the Cowboys, because I would be written out of wills if I cheered for the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, that is a no-go in my family. So I love all the Texas teams. I mean, I'm wearing a Rangers cap right now, still supporting them through a rather dreadful season. But I could never cheer for the Dallas Cowboys. They're the most hated, despised, vile team that I could ever think of. And so when we finally made it to the Super Bowl, it was everything for us because we got to play the New England Patriots, which I found it really funny that all of my friends from, you know, fandoms of different divisions, they all seem to come together and coalesce around the Eagles, which also has a very hated, polarizing fan base in the eyes of many. But they all seem to coalesce around me and Joe, my other Eagles friend that you happen to work with as well in the cigar industry. And everyone seemed to be, hey, well, if the Eagles are going to play the Patriots, let's go for the Eagles. Let's cheer for them. We don't want Brady and the evil empire to have another one. So that was kind of a cool dynamic at work. But the thing that I really liked is when it comes to the teams that I follow, it's kind of eerie how the Dallas Mavericks won their first championship, much like the way that the Philadelphia Eagles won their first championship. It was totally unexpected at the beginning of the year. They got to go against the team that had previously ripped their hearts out in their championship. You know, the Mavericks had lost to the Miami Heat. Right. And, you know, 5 years later, they get to rematch them and they win their first franchise title. The Eagles lost in 2004 to the Patriots. We come all the way back around 2017, 18 season, and they get to exercise that demon. Like, there's no more cathartic experience than winning your first against that team. It made it even more special. And especially in my family, you know, my mother was the biggest Eagles fan on the planet. She was a regular in a publication called Eagles Digest, and she had multiple articles published about her. And when we got to Texas, I'll never forget, they threw a party for us. My dad's company threw a party for us, and someone handed her a Dallas Cowboys T-shirt, And she said, "Thank you. I have something to wash my car with." And she drove around town in a Kelly Green sports car.
Oh my God!
I mean, she was
That's
an
great.
avid fan. Unfortunately, she passed away in 2000, so she didn't get to experience the Super Bowl. But it was actually really cool. My brother and I put a newspaper on her grave when they won in February. So it was kind of a neat symbolic moment to say, hey, we finally accomplished it. So yeah, incredible experience. I was at a restaurant that was actually an Eagles fan hangout in DFW with my brother, and I am not ashamed to admit that there was grown man sports crying going on in that beautiful moment, because the final play of the game, when Brady threw it to the end zone, it seemed to be like every cheesy sports cliche movie where it takes, 30 seconds for the final play to happen. And you finally realize that the football hit the ground in the end zone. It's truly over. There's almost like 3 to 5 seconds of disbelief and then pure joy. So yeah, an amazing Super Bowl run, an unlikely Super Bowl run. But going to Phil's point about the pressure to repeat, I don't really feel the pressure to repeat. Like, I'm not saying I'm satisfied at all. Like, obviously, once you've been to the top of that mountain, you want that sports high again and again.
Once you have Nick Foles leave you to the promised land, it's kind of hard not to want that all the time.
Well, and he's going to have to lead Philadelphia on Thursday night because he's looking like he's going to be a starter since Carson Wentz is medically cleared yet to go. But
they need to hold him out, man. They need to hold him out.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, with a knee injury like that, that's very delicate. Why would you rush it?
RG3 is an example of why you don't do that, man. I mean, he's the poster child of why you do not come back from an injury too early.
For sure. And going to Phil's point, it's just so hard in the NFL to repeat. I think it's probably the hardest league to repeat in. You don't see it very often. There's so much that can happen in the course of a season. You're talking about a season that is so unbelievably physically demanding that you have to obviously have the preparation behind you, but you have to honestly have a little bit of luck. You have to, be peaking at the right time and gelling as a team with momentum. It's just so hard to repeat in this league. I mean, other than Brady's Patriots in the past 10 years, you don't see that dominance from year to year. I don't expect them to take huge steps back. I think on paper they're still a very good team. But, I mean, am I going to be surprised if the Eagles don't win the Super Bowl this year? Absolutely not. Am I still over the moon with joy that they finally did it? Yeah. I can live on that sports high for quite a while. But I'm optimistic about this year. But too many times in sports we just don't sit back and just enjoy the moment. Just enjoy that championship for as long as you can. I mean, those are lifelong memories that I'll have with me forever about where I was and hugging my brother and, the tears of pure joy, as I'm sure you would attest to when the Green Bay Packers ascend that mountain as well. And I honestly think that Phil's going to be emotionally where I was a year ago, because I think his Rams are going to be pretty stout as well, and he might get to experience that for another time in his life. So.
Well, let's hear about that. And, that's some great stories, Kyle. And that, especially that moment about, laying that newspaper down on the graveside. I mean, shoot, man. This is supposed to be a manly show, and I'm choking back tears here. But speaking of choking back tears,
that's called a segue in the radio industry,
Let's talk about the highs and the lows and the very source that gives Phil his nickname, Angry Phil. The same, St. Louis, LA. What are they? Rams. The Rams are.
We're the Rams because our owner. We're in LA because of our owner. But you know what's funny is before I start on the Rams, the thing that was more interesting about the Eagles, and I think I have the stat correctly, they were an underdog in every game as a number 1 seed.
That's right. Bust out those dog face masks there.
I mean, first off, I don't think that's ever happened in NFL history. Number 1 seed faces Atlanta, underdog. Faces Minnesota, underdog. And then, of course, the Patriots, they're obviously going to be an underdog. Any team facing them would be an underdog against the Patriots. But every team has injuries. And right. I think the Eagles last year, I think it showed how strong their coaching staff is. Even Doug Peterson's in his second year. Frank Wright, who's not there anymore, he's now in Indianapolis as their head coach, I think did a wonderful job in at least making the offense work for Nick Foles. Yeah, it wasn't the same when Carson Wentz was out, but at least it was still enough to get the job done. Because, I mean, I didn't think the Eagles were going to win the Super Bowl last year. I wanted them to see it because I know Kyle and Joe, and hey, if I don't have a dog in the fight, I'll root for y'all.
Underdog, right?
Yeah, but I didn't see it happening, so that was cool to see.
What's funny is I thought the Eagles were going to lose every game until the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl, I thought they would actually win. Like, I thought they would lose against Atlanta. I thought they were going to lose against Minnesota. And then when they got to the Super Bowl, I'm like, well, shoot, why not?
And Bear, I know the answer of why they won all those games. So I had this superstition that throughout the course of the season, if I had a Candela wrapper right before the game, that they could not lose. And so I found the great GB19 and the Fumarian, which I'm sure a lot of your listeners are very familiar with. And I was convinced that every time, that was my little ritual. If I had a Candela wrapper before the game, I was going to be good to go. And that somehow a game 1,000 miles away was going to be influenced by that habit.
Have you stocked up on Candelas for the upcoming season? That's the question.
Well, it was horrifying because the Fumarian ran out of stock at the local shop. So I was scrambling because I had to do my part for the Eagles. And so it's kind of funny because when you said you thought the Eagles were going to lose every game until the Super Bowl, man, every week I tend to be a very negative fan. I mean, that's what Philadelphia fans are. Like, we'll crap on our team, but if you're
negative, never, man, you're the most positive person I've ever met in my life.
If you try to crap on our team, then we're going to jump all over you. And so, I mean, perfect example, my grandfather, who I know you're a big baseball guy with the Red Sox. My grandfather, he didn't like football as much as he did baseball. He's a big Phillies fan, like lifelong Phillies fan. I'll never forget, I called him in the mid-2000s when they won the World Series. I said, Grandpa, congratulations, you won the World Series. And just the epitome of a Philadelphia fan, he goes, yeah, but it took him 6 games. So, even at the top of the mountain, he was still, grumpy about,
So when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, it's like, yeah, it took him 4 quarters. Was he? He's upset that they didn't mercy roll him in the middle of the third or something.
Well, yeah, no,
it took Nick Foles doing a trick play to make that happen.
Our complaint would be that we lost the lead at some point in the game. That would probably be what we go for. But yeah, I mean, it was weird because in the run up to it, I thought, oh my gosh, they have the number 1 seed, they have a home field advantage. And then I thought to myself, man, like, they're not going to beat Atlanta. They're surely not going to beat Minnesota. But when it got to the actual Super Bowl, I remember walking into your store, Bear, that Sunday morning, and I had some friends there. I had the biggest smile on my face. I picked up 2 GB19s, and I looked at one of our friends, Bruce, and I shook his hand as I was walking out. I said, I don't know how and I don't know why, but they're going to win the Super Bowl today. Like, there was just this overwhelming confidence about they're just going to get it done. And I can't explain it to you because I usually am the most negative sports fan. I mean, I went to Texas A&M where you start off strong every September, and then by November you've lost 4 in a row. I mean, I have a lifelong of pain with the Eagles, the Aggies, the Mavericks. So I'm usually pretty negative, but for at least that one Sunday on February the 4th, I was pretty positive. So
I argue that my brother loves misery more than anybody else because he's a Cowboys fan, a Cubs fan, a Notre Dame fan. And if he liked hockey, I'm pretty sure he would have been a Rangers fan, like, until this year. Like, I mean, the guy just loves misery, man. It's just absolutely just iconic. But again, speaking of misery, let's try to segue a little bit more back to Phil here. Phil, I want to hear about your Rams, man. Like, okay, I mean, last year they essentially, they don't come out of nowhere. It's not like they weren't the Cleveland.
No, yes, we did. Yes,
no,
we did.
They're not the Cleveland Browns, because out of the Cleveland Browns is out of nowhere. Let's not make sure they're terrible. But everyone had written Jared Goff off. Like, I think that's the thing that's probably the most impressive, right? I mean, was that not the thing that you were most impressed with? They finished the season 11-5. They're 7-1 away, 4-4 at home. I mean, weird year, but they ultimately finish on top in of the NFC West. I mean, just a crazy year. I mean, tell us what you've thought of last season for your Rams.
I think going into the year, I probably sat not too far where Kyle was at the beginning of the year. Kind of unknown of where we are, maybe a playoff contender, but reality for me, I was hoping to see progress because, that the Jeff Fisher era was just horrible. So I just want to see at least improvement.
Can we agree? Can the three of us agree that he's probably the most overrated head coach of all time? Can we agree to that?
I agree.
That's some 7-9 stuff right there.
That's a 7-9 statement. I understand.
And look at this. Look at this. The two QBs that were in the NFC Championship game, Case Keenum, Nick Foles. A year prior, they were on the same team. They were with the Rams. This shows another example of why Jeff Fisher is so horrible.
See, this is why I bring Phil on, because he brings like just absurd, like just facts out of nowhere, just like that. Like, no big deal. No big deal. Like, just, hey, fun fact.
No,
he knows everything.
But I was genuinely surprised at what we did last year. I felt like we would be better, but I did not think we were going to be winning the West. I did not think we would be making the playoffs. If you had to tell me prior to week one, hey, if we win 6 games, this is great. But I think on both sides we did very well. Wade Phillips came in with what we had from the year prior of Greg Williams when he was our DC. Thank God he's gone. Wade really did a good job.
Bounty Gate 2.0 on your hands? I mean, that sounds like fun to me.
No, I just actually wanted someone on defense that's intelligent and not just yell at players. And then on the flip side, Sean McVay, I mean, yeah, we made some subtle changes. We signed a Robert Woods. We drafted a Cooper Kupp. And we basically –
How'd you feel about that hire, Phil? How'd you feel? Like at first, I know it's kind of hard to look back now because you're like, oh, my God, he's amazing. But how'd you feel about the hire up front?
When I heard that we were talking to Sean McVay and it was strong, I knew he was the OC for Washington. But he wasn't my first kind of thought. So I was kind of on the fence a bit. But once it came out that he was going to bring Wade Phillips as our defensive coordinator, I was all in because Wade's going to fix our defense. We have the talent on defense to be really, really good. We just couldn't do it for whatever reason with Greg Williams. We bring in Wade, who you can say what you want about him as a head coach, as a defensive coordinator.
He's out in Denver.
But as a defensive coordinator, he is absolutely one of the best. I'll put him up there with Don Capers, who y'all had for several years.
Oh, man, don't say that. Don't insult Wade like that.
No, I think
don't insult Wade like that.
That's how good I think Don is, and that's how good I think Wade is. And
I'm so glad Don Capers is gone.
Really?
Oh God, okay. Dude, yes, dude.
But I mean, yeah, I didn't expect him to get hired. But watching our we had the Amazon what do you want to call it? They had All or Nothing. There it is. And I saw Sean McVay a little bit.
That's what you stumble on. You're pulling out stats out of your butt from left and right, but that's what you stumble on. You couldn't remember the name of a show? Come on, Phil.
I'm sorry.
Classic Phil.
And seeing McVay kind of work with the team is like, all right, there is something here. All right. And yeah, I mean, you look what he did last year as a head coach. Pretty much, he ran the offense. He didn't care what Wade Phillips was doing on defense, while Wade and our defense was on the field. You saw McVay just on the sideline looking at notes of the previous offensive set of plays and making changes while Wade's coaching the team. He's not even caring.
Text messages, looking at Tinder, swipe right.
Hey, man.
Oh, we're on defense. We're good. Yeah.
I mean, he is the youngest head coach in NFL history, so, hey.
It's true.
But no, yeah, it was a letdown. I know at the end of the year when we lost to Atlanta, it was one of those things where I was upset that night because, hey, when you get to the playoffs, you want to win. And we were a protagonist for the championship like the Eagles were. So, yeah, when we didn't get it, yeah, that night I wasn't happy. But the next morning I was like, you know what? We were 11-5. We won the West. in a year that not many people, including me, thought that was going to happen. So last year was a really good year for us, and going into this year, we should do the same, and we should do more than lose to Atlanta in a playoff game. We should make noise. So
I think where I was surprised, I was definitely surprised about Jared Goff. I knew he wasn't as bad as his rookie year. And I knew he was. I knew he was disappointing under Jeff Fisher. Jeff Fisher is not a quarterback whisperer, man. He is a quarterback killer, and so I knew Jared Goff was in a bad situation. I didn't think he was going to come back. He was going to bounce this well, but he really did. But I knew Todd Gurley was going to have a turnaround season, and he did.
Yeah, I did too. I did too, because our offense was just absolutely horrible that final year of Fisher. Goff. I mean, McVay work the system around to the abilities that Goff has. I mean, hey, we drafted him number 1 overall for a reason. And his rookie year, he didn't really get to show it, but last year he did show of why he was justified for that pick and why we made that trade, giving up the draft picks in the future to get that pick. So I was impressed by Goff. I was questioning if he was going to be our QB of the future. I think quietly the team was questioning it as well, because there were rumors before the season even started that if Goff wasn't going to be the guy, that they were going to go after Kirk Cousins. So it was nice that that didn't happen. And the thing I'm really excited is, even with how Goff played last year, how great our offense played last year, I think our offense can still be better than what it was last year.
I know. I'm with you on that. So right. So both of your teams. So go ahead, Phil. I'm sorry. Finish up, man. I keep interrupting.
No, we had Sammy Watkins last year as our deep threat, and we kind of used him, kind of not used him, more of a decoy. And now we have Barton Cooks as our deep threat guy, stretch the field. I mean, if our system's similar to what New Orleans has, I mean, Barton Cooks played in that offense, and he was quite lethal. So that's where I'm really excited. I think it just brings another element that we can use that we didn't have last year on a consistent basis.
Brandon Cooks, Sammy Watkins, I think you upgraded from there. I don't think Sammy's as bad as everyone kind of gives him grief over, but I think you did get the better end of that one. But so you guys have, but you're both your teams, the Eagles, we're thinking that Foles is going to be starting the season, but they have their quarterback of the future. You have Carson Wentz, arguably the MVP last year. Phil, you argue that Todd Gurley was the MVP last year, but it seems that you have your quarterback of the future with Jared Goff. The Packers, my team, have their quarterback of the present and for the foreseeable future in Aaron Rodgers. And I got to say that I was really it wasn't a disappointment. 7-9 wasn't a disappointment last season because we had lost Aaron Rodgers for so much of the season. Aaron Rodgers is it just goes to show you that Aaron Rodgers is the Green Bay Packers, and that depth is obviously our worst point because we don't have any of it, and it's been our bag for years that we just one guy, we have a great plan going into the season, and then week 1 we lose a couple of guys, and that's what happens. Clay Matthews ships to middle linebacker because we've lost a couple of guys. We're scrambling for defensive backs off the couch because we've drafted a couple guys and they get hurt or something like that. And so it's kind of always been, in my opinion, that's kind of always been our downfall, is the fact that we have no depth. We have arguably the best quarterback in the league, in my opinion, the best quarterback in the league.
No doubt.
And multi-time MVP, Super Bowl champion, and yet the best wide receiver that we can get him is Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, Geronimo Allison. I mean, these are his targets, guys. Jared Cook.
You forgot Devontae Adams.
Devontae Adams is he is probably the guy that's developed into something, but they're going to let him. I have a feeling they'll let him walk in his contract year. because I don't know if they're going to be able to afford him. So it's, they were able to sign Cobb and Jordy Nelson to those extensions. And while that was exciting because I liked watching those guys play with Aaron, it also got me thinking that, okay, it would be really cool if we had like a Brandon Cooks or a Julio Jones, AJ Green, like Des Bryant, even.
Maker.
I mean, what?
So you want a big difference maker. Like,
exactly. Alshon Jeffrey, what he did for the Kyle's Eagles last year. I mean, somebody like that.
Chicago.
Yeah. Well, gosh, man. I would take an expert. I took Julius Peppers played for us, man, and he was pretty awesome. So, but I mean, that's probably the worst point about it.
Would you? I mean, who's the best receiver that you've had? I mean, would Greg Jennings be that last guy that could stretch the field in relation to what Cooks could do if you had him? Because, I mean, when Jennings was in his prime.
Yeah, I would probably say you're right, Phil. The thing is, Greg Jennings, Robert Brooks, Antonio Freeman, Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, Donald Driver, all these receivers that are beloved in our franchise. Jermichael Finley, Mark Chimura, like going back all the way. They're products of the quarterback that was at the helm, man. I mean, can we really say that all those wide receivers and tight ends that I just mentioned, are they iconic? Like, not even Hall of Fame. Let's just take that out of the discussion. Are they iconic wide receivers in the league's history? Really?
I would say out of all of the receivers that I think y'all have had, the one for me that stands out is Donald Driver.
And he was a great one, but I just don't know.
He was consistent. I think of all the receivers that you've had in your time, he was consistent. Jennings was really good, but I think that was a short shelf life, to be honest. Cobb, I think he's on the downslide, to be honest. Last year, but then again, last year as a whole,
last 2 years, man. Last 2 years, he's down.
But Bear, I mean, to your point there, your quarterback is so unbelievably in a class of his own in the NFL. The Green Bay Packers were 4-1 in the season before he went down with the collarbone the collarbone injury. So, I mean, they're a good squad. When he's out there, there's no one who can extend a play with his legs quite like him. I mean, just ask any Cowboys fan that saw him come in for that playoff game. The guy is he puts on a masterclass in how to scramble and throw. And, I mean, he's truly one of the best, if not the best, quarterback in the NFL under pressure. So when he comes back from his injury, I mean, the other thing that Green Bay had going against him is that they lost some pretty key offensive linemen. So when you don't have your offensive line intact, when your franchise quarterback goes down, you're going to struggle. I mean, it's just – I mean, that would happen to anyone. So when he's healthy and back in there, he's the type of, transformational quarterback that he can make everyone around him better because he is that good. I mean, like Jimmy Graham, are you excited about him at all and what he could add to it? Because
I'm excited about Jimmy Graham because of who my quarterback is.
Exactly, he makes everyone better.
Drew Brees, he was Gronkowski. He was in that class. We had a quarterback, and with all due respect to Russell Wilson, because I do think that Russell Wilson is a talent, but I also think that that Pete Carroll's is a piece of shit. So that
offense never suited him.
What's that?
That offense never suited Graham's skill set.
That's what I'm talking about. Like you trade for one of the best receivers, not even tight ends, one of the best receivers in the NFL. You trade for him to give your young quarterback a weapon, and then you don't even use him right. I mean, good God, how does this man have a job? And he is the world's biggest douchebag. Really, he has to be.
The biggest problem for Seattle right now is they can't protect Russell Wilson. And
that's their biggest problem. Their biggest problem is Pete Carroll. Come on, Phil, stop it. Were you not listening to what I was saying?
Russell Wilson is a leading rusher, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's all kinds of problems.
But I mean, they traded away one of their best offensive linemen to New Orleans to do that trade. And you look at Seattle's offensive line. they are a shell of what they used to be, an absolute shell.
No, they're absolutely terrible.
I mean, Russell's running back there for his life, and I'm surprised he hasn't been injured because he has taken some hits. He's been beaten up. I mean, I'll give him credit. He is as tough as they come, but I never felt like they used Jimmy Graham in that offense properly. Never made sense. That's kind of a running-based offense. And they had Marshawn Lynch, and we'll throw it to Doug Baldwin when it's there. We'll throw it to Curse when it's there. But reality is we're going to run the ball Marshawn Lynch.
Right.
So it made no sense. Russell Wilson was not going to be a Drew Brees type QB, and that offense was not going to be a New Orleans Saints time offense. So why would you trade for that asset?
Exactly.
It made with you. No sense.
100% with you. So we've tried to kind of transition back to the NFC West, Phil's division, okay, with the Rams. So let's go ahead and talk about them. So who do you see at the top of the division in the NFC West, Phil, and why this year?
Barring any injuries, surprises, I am a little bit optimistic because we played none of our first team in preseason, but I think we don't have to. I don't think it's a cocky thing. I think it's more of there's no point in getting anyone injured. I think we know what we have. The expectation's simple. We should win the West.
So So you got the Rams. Okay. All right, Kyle.
I got the Rams. And but I will say this. I think the team that will threaten us in our division is San Fran. I think San Fran is going to be
Jimmy G.
You know what? It's a little bit of that. It's also a little bit. I look at Seattle. They're not where they used to be. Arizona.
Arizona's going to be starting a quarterback in the second drive of the regular season because Sam Bradford's going to get hurt. So I'm with you.
Most likely. And
we'll
see what Rosen can do. But honestly, their whole offense revolves around what David Johnson can do, and they don't really have anyone else.
He's coming back from an injury too. So there's a lot of question marks around Arizona, man. Larry Fitzgerald, he's like 60 years old and still playing, at a high level. But he can't be forever.
You know what? He's had I love Larry. Even being on a team against in our division, I love Larry because he's just a class act, and I like the fact that he's kind of taken a Hines Ward kind of role a bit, kind of being a slot receiver, blocking receiver, getting in the dirt.
Nobody blocks. There's not a better blocking receiver in the league right now than Larry Fitzgerald.
No, there's not. He does everything. I would love to have Larry Fitzgerald on our team, just because.
I would love to have him on his team. I'd love to have him on mine. I don't think that's.
He's a class act. I hope he gets a ring. Hopefully not at the expense of us, but I think he deserves one.
He'd have to get a mid-season trade, man. He's going to retire after the season, I bet. I really see it.
Who knows? He's getting up there. We'll see.
All right, so Phil's got the Rams. Because everyone else is down in the division. What about you, Kyle? Do you feel the same way, or do you got somebody else?
I think people need to really don't overthink the NFC West. This one's a no-brainer. It should be on paper the Rams. Now, there are going to be people out there who think the sexy pick is the 49ers because of Garoppolo at the end of the season and how they had a streak right at the end and they're looking like a good team. Yeah, maybe they get to 9 or 10 wins, but if they take care of the business, the Rams should win that division fairly easily. I have some question marks about whether Jared Goff is the guy. I'm sure Phil is probably wearing his jersey underneath his shirt right now.
I'm surprised both of y'all aren't. I'm like, am I the only one represented tonight? I was waiting. Actually, not even his jersey. I was waiting for Phil to bust out his Isaac Bruce jersey.
I thought about it
a little bit.
Ring right now. So, no, but
he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. By the way.
I know a lot of people are going to get on the bandwagon of, Garoppolo looked like the man at the end, and obviously they moved Sherman over on the defensive side of the ball, so they think the 49ers might be that kind of trendy pick you're looking as a dark horse. But, the Rams on paper, even though I have questions about whether Jared Goff really is that guy, I think I was a little bit unfair to him because his rookie season was just so abysmal, but then he came back, his second year and looked much, much better in their system. But as far as the rest of that division goes, Seattle, the Legion of Boom is dead. Can we just agree on that? Earl Thomas wants out of there.
The Legion of Doom now. It's not even Boom. Legion of Doom.
Yeah,
Doom and Gloom.
The Legion of Gloom. Yeah.
Legion of Gloom.
Earl Thomas wants out of there. I mean, everyone is just Richard Sherman's long gone. Like they're a shell of what they used to be. Certainly when they were making their Super Bowl appearances, and then Arizona. I can speak from experience on this. I was once someone who was duped into thinking that Sam Bradford could lead your team to great things because he came to Philadelphia for a time.
Dear
but
sweet Kyle.
Yeah, me too.
His legs, you know, the tendons in his knees are apparently made out of paper. He's probably going to be, you know, injuring himself walking out of the tunnel on week 1. But I mean, I still have friends that defend him to the death that, he's got the best passing completion percentage in NFL history.
Yeah, because he's only thrown like 10 passes, man. Like, of course, you know, when you have that
offensive line. If he had I have friends all the time.
If he had an offensive line, come on.
If he had that offensive line, he'd be.
He could have the Great Wall of China, and he'd still freaking fall down and hurt himself, man. Come on.
In all seriousness, I think he kind of has the David Carr effect. You know, David Carr, when he was drafted by Houston, was supposed to be this great QB, but David Carr just got beat up. I mean, just absolutely beat up, and to the point to where I think psychologically affected him. And I think Bradford has that same problem. He's been just hit, injured, to the point to where psychologically, I don't think.
No, I don't disagree with you. I think that's exactly the point, Phil. I think it's all. I think a lot of it's mental and in his head. And I mean, his injuries are his injuries. His body is his body. He has a fragile body, but he also clearly doesn't know how to protect himself.
No, he does not. I mean, he tore the ACL the first time, then the second time with us, he tore it in preseason again. So it's a shame because I think I would have liked to see what he could have become. I thought he had the talent to do the job, but once the injury started happening, that's it. I mean, he went to Philly, didn't do anything. Then he went to Minnesota, and I mean, he got replaced by Case Keenum in the middle of a game. He was just struggling so bad, they said, "You're out."
Yeah,
and
exactly.
They put Keenum in.
Exactly my point.
And there's some guys, he's in the same mold as those guys who were unbelievably phenomenal at the college level. I mean, at OU, he was untouchable.
Yeah.
In the same vein as like a Tim Tebow, like untouchable at that level. And then there's something that happens when they go up to the NFL level that it just never works out. They never reach that level.
It doesn't translate. Not everyone translates. And that's what I went back. I go back all the way with Michael Vick on this, guys. I knew Michael Vick was going to be a flop in the NFL. I knew it.
Virginia Tech, phenomenal.
I just knew he was not going to succeed, and I could not believe that everyone. I was a high school kid at the time. I couldn't believe how everyone didn't see it, and I'm like this dumb kid. Actually, I was in college. I wasn't, how am I the only one that knows this? Like, and
I think, Michael Vick,
if
Michael Vick would have done what he did with the Eagles when he came back, and Kyle will remember this, because we all know what Vick could do on the running and scrambling and, all that element, but he wasn't really a good passer.
That's all he was, Phil. He came in. Pony.
Well, no, I will say this. When he came to Philly, that 1 year where he just rewound the clock, I mean, he made some throws in the pocket that were like pretty damn good.
He did until he was reckless with his body and he dove for the end zone and got his ribs smashed in by the Washington Redskins and was out for an extended period of time.
All right, so we're going a little bit back in the past. Let's go back to the NFC West real quick. So we got 2 picks for the Rams. I wish I could surprise everyone by picking somebody else. I think the jury's out on Jimmy G still. I don't know if he's really going to be the next big thing. It wouldn't surprise me, but I'm not necessarily convinced either. Sam Bradford's going to get hurt while he gets out of bed before the season opener. So that's going to leave some question marks in Arizona. Pete Carroll's a douchebag. Seattle, that does it. So Rams should win the division. I think that's clear. So let's go back over to my division. And we'll shift over to the NFC East here in a second. Let's do the NFC North. Minnesota Vikings win the division. My team is 7-9 last season. Detroit has a good showing. Matt Stafford proving he can get it done for the most part without Calvin Johnson. And then of course the seller is the Bears because Oh yeah, they're the Bears. Except for the Bears did pick up. Can we say the best pass rusher in the league, Khalil Mack?
Khalil
No.
Mack.
No,
No.
no.
He's
No.
Who's the best pass rusher in the league?
He's gonna say Aaron Donald. There it is.
Oh, okay.
There's that Rams bias.
There's the homer. He's still bringing it back to the NFC West. I'm trying
and
to.
I'm going to say, Fletcher
back.
Cox. How about that? So we'll all throw our homerism right now.
I'm not saying Khalil Mack is not a great pass rusher, but I will say Donald is better. I won't lie.
Look at the way he says it. The way he says it, he's basically saying Khalil Mack's okay, but he's no Aaron Donald. You know,
their contracts are similar.
Absolutely. Okay,
yeah, so true.
All right. So I think this is going to be a fun season for anyone who's not a Packers, Vikings, Lions, or Bears fan to watch the NFC North, because I think it's going to be an absolute just melee the entire season. I think it's going to be splits all around as far as division play. I don't think anyone's going to win 2 games against their opponent. I literally think that. Our good friend Gus, who's also a fellow Packers fan, he's probably cringing as he's watching this because he's probably like, "Bear, we're gonna beat the Bears, man. Why are you afraid of the Bears?" I'm like, Khalil Mack, dude. Like, oh my god, like he's gonna, and he's like, what's he gonna do to Aaron Rodgers? I was like, I don't know, but Shea McClellan took Aaron Rodgers out for half a season, so I'm pretty sure Khalil Mack can do worse damage than Shea McClellan. That's all I'm saying. But I really think that in the end, I'm Kyle. I'm with you. I hate being positive too.
It's not for everyone.
I just see the Vikings coming back and winning the division. I think it's going to be a hard fought division. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, my allegiance is to the Packers. The best quarterback in the league should win in the division. They're going to get in the playoffs. It's just, it's just going to be a rough season. Injuries always take their toll. It's always the same song and dance with the Packers. So I think the Vikings squeak it out. Packers second in toll. And then, but I think the Bears improve upon their last season as well. So I think the Bears and Lions are going to somewhat be, that 6-10, 7-9 kind of range. Just on the cusp of greatness, but not really so. That's kind of my prediction. Kyle, what do you think? What do you think from the NFC North?
Well, in the NFC North, I know I'm going to be Captain Obvious here, but I think the Vikings are the class of the division right now, especially coming off that last season. They're going to get Dalvin Cook back, who's an explosive offensive player. He's actually the one I wanted in the NFL draft. I
remember, man. You were so pissed. I was
hoping the Eagles would get him as their running back, and then.
And who'd you guys end up drafting? What was that guy's name? Derek Barnett?
Yeah. The one that, had the strip sack fumble that secured it. But
that won the Super Bowl, basically. For him. Yeah.
So,
well, technically, but you did trade for Ajayi. So Ajayi, you kind of got that element.
True. But, I mean, with Dalvin coming back, that opens up a whole new dimension to their offense. But, I mean, the big question mark for the Vikings is Kirk Cousins the guy. I mean, I had a front row seat to see Kirk Cousins with the Redskins, and I'm just not sold on the guy. I'm sorry. Like, I know there are some people out there that will probably watch it screaming at me, going, "No, this, Kyle's an idiot" or whatever. But
Salas.
Kirk Cousins, well, of course, any Vikings fan, right? But Kirk Cousins, I mean, he doesn't move the needle for me. I don't see them. Like, they're a great team. They have all the pieces there, and especially their defense is fantastic. I don't know about Kirk Cousins, but you could also make the argument, was Case Keenum a system quarterback? I mean, I don't know. There's question marks about this team, but I think they're the class of the NFC North. Green Bay, like I said earlier, they were 4-1 with Rodgers, and then they had some key lineman injuries. Rodgers goes down with the collarbone injury, and then, who knows what they'll be. I mean, if Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers, then I would say that you have a chance any year, because he's that phenomenal.
Thank you for your faith.
In Detroit, Stafford's still playing at a high level. They've got a new coach there that came over from the Patriots, Patricia. LeGarrette Blount, who was a huge part of the Eagles' Super Bowl run, is now their running back. He just changed teams in the offseason. Detroit was awful on defense, though. They were like 27th in defense this year.
Right.
And then in Chicago, they think they found their guy from North Carolina, Trubisky. They added a very talented tight end in Trey Burton, who I also know from the Eagles because he's the one that threw the pass on the Philly special trick play in the Super Bowl. I mean, he's a great talent. I was really upset to see the Eagles let him go. And then, of course, Khalil Mack is on the defensive side of the ball. So, I mean, Chicago, they're making moves going in the right direction. I mean, they're on an upward trajectory, but they're not going to be a player yet. I would say question mark on Green Bay because if Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers, they definitely have a battle on their hands in the division. But right now, I don't see, given the success they had last year, other than Kirk Cousins maybe not being the guy they hope for, and hopefully, you know, they don't regret getting rid of Case Keenum.
So you're saying the Vikings, though.
Yeah, no doubt.
I'm saying the Vikings. You're saying the Vikings, and you're trying to be gracious to your host tonight, Kyle, and I appreciate your compliments. So, Phil, who do you think is going to take the NFC North? Do you think the Vikings as well?
I like the Vikings. Defensively, they're one of the best teams defensively.
No one's got a hot take yet. Everyone's like all in agreement here. We're all buddies.
Well, no,
NFC East.
Touché.
No, that would be an agreement real quick too. But no, the Vikings, you know, defensively, you know, that's how they won games, except that one game in the NFC Championship game. But, you know, like Kyle said, they're getting Dalvin Cook back. I think Kirk Cousins, he might be a question mark, but I think at the end of the day, he's better than Case Keenum.
Sure.
So that offense does improve on both sides, passing and rushing. If they could ever get anything out of Laquan Treadwell, because he's been an absolute bust ever since they drafted him, that offense could get better, but who knows? You know, the Lions, I mean, last year they were hot, then they went cold, and they kind of improved, but, I mean, I don't know. Chicago's a young team with Trubisky. I think they're on the way up as well, but I think they're a team that could threaten next year or the year after. You know, they need some more pieces. Now, the Packers, if Aaron Rodgers does Aaron Rodgers things, then they're going to be a contender for the division, and they'll be in the wild card. But, you know, at the end of the day, there's other factors. How is the offensive line going to be? How's the running game going to be?
Exactly.
Stuff like that. And I know Gus is high on the running back situation. I'm not, because you can't be one-dimensional and win the NFL. And when Rodgers is hot, he's that one guy that he can do it, but he's not going to be hot all the time, or he's going to meet his match of another team that's just as hot.
But to your point, Phil, Aaron Rodgers isn't one-dimensional. Like, yes, he plays one position, but he makes the offense dynamic because he balances it out. So that's a brilliant point.
There, yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's one-dimensional, meaning, you know, you can't run the ball, so you just have to throw it. And he's that one guy that they can throw it and be effective without a run game.
Sure.
But you can't do that in the NFL on a regular basis. You have to have both parts work, and if they don't have a running game, a consistent running game, I don't know. I don't see if they don't have the running game, I don't see the Packers threatening. I really
All right,
don't.
so three votes for not the Seahawks, 3 votes for the Rams, 3 votes for the Vikings. All right, so and then let's go over to Kyle's division, the NFC East. So the defending champion and the Super Bowl champion, NFC East, Philadelphia Eagles. So NFC and Super Bowl champions, Philadelphia Eagles. Kyle, are we gonna have a repeat division championship?
I feel like we're agreeing on so much on this show. We should just say our picks together in unison. But are we going to have a repeat? I have heard some hot takes around this town, and I was listening to a local radio station that I used to work for, and their experts on there were actually predicting the Dallas Cowboys to win. So I'm not discounting.
Really?
I'm not discounting anything.
I have to take my glasses off to wipe my eyes for that.
So
Phil's flustered. Oh God.
Well, I've heard around town before that a lot of people are saying don't discount the Cowboys, but here's the breakdown of the division. First of all, the Redskins, I'm not even going to pay them much mention or mind. I think they're a non-factor. I don't care if Adrian Peterson is going to be their running back or whatever. I'm not worried. I'm just not worried about.
Speaking of Larry Fitzgerald age, I mean,
at least Larry can get the job done. What has Adrian done the last couple of years? I think that's a fair point.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not worried about the Redskins, but when you go over the Giants have spent an incredible amount of money on the defensive side of the football. Obviously, they have a new offensive spark in Barkley that they drafted this year. He looked impressive. I mean, the first touch of the preseason, he went for over 30 yards, and then after that, it was, he was a rookie again. But I mean, they have that shiny new toy to play with. Eli, he's getting on in years, getting a little long in the tooth there. I don't know how much more effective he can be. So really, I look at it as a two-horse race. It's the Cowboys and the Eagles. The Eagles, I mean, I realize I'm looking through Kelly Green glasses here, but the Eagles, I think, improved on paper over the roster they had in the Super Bowl.
I'll agree with you.
They have made some major improvements to their defensive line. I mean, they have Derek Barnett. They have Fletcher Cox on there. They added Michael Bennett in the offseason. I mean, that is a scary, scary defensive line. And then, I mean, what they have accomplished at the cornerback position is something that was a huge issue a couple of years ago. They had to money whip Byron Maxwell from the Seattle Seahawks, and that didn't work out. Nolan Carroll was, I mean, you were better off putting a trash can on the field than having Nolan Carroll out there in coverage. And then he went to Dallas, did the same thing, and he was out of the league. But now they have this wealth of choices in the secondary, and they have some really promising guys. I'm really curious to see how Sidney Jones is going to work out. He's someone that had first-round draft grades on it. Unfortunately, in his pro day, he suffered a horrific injury.
Am I the only one that's not picking their team to win the division? This is what I'm getting at.
Well, and I mean, the defensive line improved, the corner position improved. We still have major issues, I believe, at linebacker because Jordan Hicks, I mean, he's made out of paper, so he gets injured all the time. He's suffered torn pectoral muscles. But then on the offensive side of the ball, they have a wealth of experience at the wide receiver position, which, I mean, Alshon Jeffrey was incredible. He's going to be suspended the first couple of games of the season. They have someone who I believe was a true comeback player of the year, Nelson Aguilar, because he played like garbage 2 years ago where they were thinking about cutting him. And then I don't know what he got right mentally, but he turned
like the
around.
Laquan Treadwell, Phil mentioned him a minute ago. That was kind of Nelson Aguilar's kind of reputation. But yeah, he had a beautiful turnaround season.
Yeah, that the tight end they picked up in the draft that I know the Dallas Cowboy fans won't admit to, but that's who they wanted, was Dallas Goedert, and he looked unstoppable in the preseason. So at tight end they have Dallas, and they also have Zach Ertz, who's quite talented. But I mean, Nick Foles in preseason, so he's got that going for him.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. Phil, rank all the NFL wives real quick. Give us your top 5.
Well, let's see. About a year from now, Danica will be number 1. So sorry.
Oh gosh.
Oh man.
I've met her at a radio event. She's incredibly short.
Yeah, she is.
Very, very nice woman.
In stature or in dialogue?
No, she was very polite. She's just a very petite woman. But yeah, I mean. At the quarterback position, Nick Foles in the preseason didn't look great, but as a starter, I mean, can we all agree on this? Like, side topic: preseason's way too long. Why do we need 4 weeks of NFL preseason?
I think every NFL fan agrees that the preseason's too long. I don't think there's an NFL fan that's out there. It's like, I want more games.
It's unnecessary. Like, extend the regular season or shorten the preseason. Do both. I don't care, but I don't need to see the Eagles 4-string trying to compete for the 52-man roster. Like, I don't need that on my television. Like, please just start the regular season already. But and when you go to Dallas, I'm not convinced that Dak Prescott is the man yet. He kind of followed the same path that Carson Wentz did, where rookie season, a little shaky, sophomore season, it looked much better. I mean, obviously they had an incredible season, 2 years ago when they won 12 games.
Mm-hmm.
But even with Zeke Elliott, there's still huge questions for the Cowboys in the secondary. I'm not convinced that they have their lockdown corners yet. They have an unbelievable defensive end, but I mean, even at their linebacker position, is Sean Lee going to stay healthy? And then, Phil, we were talking earlier about your coach, Sean McVay, who won Coach of the Year. I'm thinking this might be it for Jason Garrett. I just don't see how he can survive if they win in that 7 to 9 range. I don't see how he could possibly survive an 8-8 season or a 9-7 season. Like, at some point, they're going to demand his head, because this is 8 years of Jason Garrett, and you know what you're getting with Jason. You're getting very conservative play calling. He's not the type that's going to go for on fourth down. Like, is there any doubt in your mind that if the Cowboys win the Super Bowl, that Jason wouldn't have called something like the Philly special as a trick play? Like, there's no doubt in my mind. He's so conservative and predictable.
Yeah, it's a fair point. So you're picking a repeat, right?
Oh, I think the Eagles will win the division. Now, beyond that is a different story, but I think the Eagles should win the division. They could go anywhere from 9 wins to, I would say, the ceiling's probably 12 wins.
Okay, Phil, do you agree? Eagles win. Eagles
I
repeat,
agree.
or?
I agree, and I don't even think it should be a cakewalk, to be honest. Giants, yeah, they have Barkley. That's great. Their offensive line's still horrible.
No returning starters.
We'll see, but Washington traded for Alex Smith. I mean, I think, and plus also they lost one of their top running backs for the year. He tore his ACL. So Washington's got their problems. Dallas, I mean, they have a lot of holes. First off, their offensive line right now is in shambles a little bit.
They don't have a center.
They don't have a center.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy that they brought in as a stopgap, because last year they had a horrible death problem with that, he's out for the year.
Sure.
Zach Martin's been banged up. You have Tyron Smith. He's had a back issue for the last year or so. So, and then that's just on their offensive line. Who's going to step out of this receiving core? Is it going to be Allen Hurns? Is it going to be is Terrence going to take the next step? And then, like Kyle said, the secondary. I mean, if Dallas wins 8 games, I will be impressed.
Sure.
Because this is a team that offensively, outside of Zeke, there's nothing that you look at going, well, this is reliable. We can get this. It's all question marks. And Dak is one of those question marks as well. I think this year will define if he is going to be the future QB for the Cowboys, or is he just a guy that had a one-year wonder and then all of a sudden teams caught up. We'll see. I think Scott Linehan is a horrible offensive coordinator. He's too bland, too vanilla.
It's predictable. You know what's going to happen.
He's Ernie Zampese 2.0. Do you guys remember Ernie Zampese when he was the offensive coordinator for the Cowboys in the 90s? Like that.
That was my time in Texas.
Oh God,
that
man,
was before my time,
bad, bro. It was bad. Like Emmitt Smith, like first down, second down, like every time. I mean, and it's Emmitt Smith, so it could work. But it's like, okay.
And what are the Cowboys going to do at tight end?
Yeah, the Cowboys don't have a tight end. Yeah, it's terrible.
They kept Rico Gathers, which was a what?
After the marijuana possession too, they didn't cut him. I couldn't believe it.
That was adorable.
All right, so I'm gonna take over here, Phil. Like just for a second. So I'm gonna like, because I definitely I mean, we could go all night and talk football. I mean, let's face it, it's the three of us. But Kyle's at Jim's house, and Jim probably wants to go to sleep at some point. And I know Phil, I think you have to work, so I want to keep my promise to you as well. But I will say that I think the NFC East is the lock of the year, and it's the lock of the year. It's the Philadelphia Eagles. It's not even going to be close. Okay, the Philadelphia Eagles are going to win this division decisively, and furthermore, no other team in the NFC East is going to have a winning record.
Ooh, hot take.
So there's my hot take.
Okay? I'll take that.
The Redskins are worthless. I do not know what everyone in the league's affinity for Eli Manning is. The guy is awful. He is terrible. My partner on a podcast I do, Primetime Cigar Coop Primetime Special Edition, Will Cooper, is a huge Giants fan. I'm sorry, man. Manning sucks. I'm sorry. It's terrible. They're not. They're. You know what? That's fine. He had 2 miracle throws to pull it off, man. That's what he had to do. Okay. You know what? But Tom Coughlin's not coaching there anymore. They don't have the killer defense anymore. And yeah, like you said, they have a shiny 2 toy. Fantastic. It's his rookie season. Let's see how he does. So there's my hot take. Eagles clearly win the division. Nobody else has a winning record in the division. And everybody here in Dallas is scratching their heads in ultimate frustration, wondering when Zeke's going to show up, when Dak's going to show up, and then they're going to be calling for Jason Garrett's head. But Kyle, I don't think he loses his job. I think Jason Garrett has a job in Dallas for as long as he wants it.
Because he's a Jerry Jones yes man?
For whatever reason you want to take it, he's going to have a job here in Dallas for as long as he wants it. Unless Nick Saban wants to come coach the Dallas Cowboys, just don't see it. Even then, I think he'd say, no, I've got my coach. I have Jason Garrett. He's a way better coach than you, Nick Saban. Only Jerry Jones is crazy enough to say something like that. So that is my hot take on that. So let's quickly just kind of tell me your pick. Let's quickly roll through the other divisions. We had some fun with our home divisions. Let's go ahead and let's tackle the everybody's favorite. Let's talk about the AFC East. The Patriots are.
I'm going to bed.
For the 100th year in a row, do the Patriots repeat again? Phil, I'm going to start with you. So Patriots, Bills, Dolphins. Can the Bills, Dolphins, or Jets? Can anyone dethrone the Patriots?
No. I wish, but no.
Such defeat in his voice.
Barrett has so much fervor on the NFC East. I can't do it on the AFC East.
I despise the Patriots, but even with that being said, no, they should win that division. They can win 11 games, 10 games, and still win that division. Just, I had the Patriots, sadly, defeatedly.
I think the Jets. Okay, I think, Kyle, I'm going to steal a spotlight for you for a second on this one. I think the Jets are going to surprise some people. I don't think they're going to win the division. I think I'm with you too. We all keep picking the same teams. It's like no one's picking anything different. I had a lot more flash and bang on the last division, but with such a decisive win for the Eagles. But I will say the Patriots are going to win. But I think the Jets are going to surprise some people. I think Todd Bowles is a really good coach.
I do too.
I like what they do, what the organization has done. So I think the Jets are going to surprise some people, but the Patriots are going to win the division. Kyle, what do you think?
Okay, so Barry, you and I are tracking right along together here because I actually put a star next to the Jets when I was doing my breakdown. And I wrote in my notes, most intriguing, Sam Darnold. Through the preseason, obviously he's question marks, he's rookies. I wasn't very impressed with him watching college because I'm a big college football fan, even more so than the NFL, which is hard to believe because I do love my Philadelphia Eagles. But watching him in college, I didn't think particularly high of him, like, oh, man, this kid's going to be a game changer. But it does intrigue me. So I put a little star next to them. Miami, Tannehill's coming back. I actually saw him quite a bit at Texas A&M. He's coming back from injury. I don't think they're going to do anything. The Bills lost 3 offensive linemen. Tyrod Taylor's gone. Josh Allen's come in. I don't see anywhere here where, even though he's going to be 41 years old, I just don't see anyone dethroning Brady. I mean, they have wide receiver depth issues, but their defensive line's better. I can't, as much as I want to pick someone else, Bear. I want to pick someone else in that division.
I think we're going to do it in this next division. So, okay, so we got the Patriots across the board, across this one. So we're going to go to the AFC West. Is Pat Mahomes going to lead them back to the promised land at the top of the division? Are the Chiefs going to stay at the top of the division? Phil, who do you got? Chiefs, Chargers, Raiders, Broncos. What do you got and why?
I like the Chargers. Chargers, at the end of the last year, they were starting to get the ball rolling a bit. The hell? What was that? Anyways,
oh, man, you'll hear me in a second. It's fine. You're good.
No, I like the Chargers, to be honest. It's not that I'm sold on Patrick Mahomes or not. The Chiefs kind of last year caught lightning in a bottle the first half of the year, and then kind of just tapered off. So I don't know where the Chiefs stand at going into this year. Is Kareem Hunt the answer at running back? Because technically he was not supposed to be the guy that was supposed to start. It's supposed to be Spencer Ware, and he scores ACL.
Right.
So there are some question marks for me, but I like the Chargers. I think the Raiders, now with not having Khalil Mack, plus, hey, they have the distraction of moving. So I think not this year for them and the Broncos. Have fun with Case Keenum, to be honest. I think that's a franchise in disarray. I mean, they cut Paxton Lynch yesterday, who they drafted in the first round. So I don't think it's a franchise that knows what they're doing really top to bottom. So I like the Chargers.
Kyle?
Man, it's getting to the point now where I just want to pick something just for the sake of picking something different, you know?
God, me too, man. I thought this was gonna be the division that we were all gonna disagree on. I really did. I was like, man, this is crazy.
It's interesting as I've been going through and looking over things before the season started. Everyone seems to pick the Chargers as this like sexy new pick for the league here. And you know what's interesting is I think 3 out of their first 5 games they ended up losing by a field goal or less. Right. So they had a really rough start, and then they started to figure things out. But I mean, people are like really, really high on this team. I saw USA Today actually pick them to win the Super Bowl.
I didn't go that. I won't go that far.
I'm not going that far. All right.
I was going to say, like, some people are so into it that I think they might be putting a little bit too much stock in. But, I mean, as far as this division goes, I'm not convinced that Oakland's going to be anything quite yet. They're probably going in the right direction with Coach Gruden now being there. But Khalil Mack, their best defensive player, just left. Went to the Chicago Bears. Case Keenum was the assistant quarterback because that way he was successful in Minnesota. Like Phil said, you know, have fun with him. I don't know. I'm still not convinced about Pat Mahomes on the Chiefs, even though, you know, Daddy Reed, as we like to call him in Philadelphia, is still at the helm there. But
oh God,
I think I'm kind of stick with the Chargers. I mean,
all right. Well, I'll just keep the boring going. I am sticking with the Chargers too. I thought I was going to be the weirdest. I think Philip Rivers is going to be Philip Rivers, man, and I think he's really going to. I think he's finally going to realize something here, and he's going to do some. I think he's going to do something this season. I think he's going to put up a career year and arguably get in the MVP race. I think he's got the weapons around him. I think that offense is balanced. I think that defense is solid. Like I said, there's nobody else in the division that's really going to compete. Oakland, who knows what's going on there? There's questions if John Gruden's already lost the locker room. Good luck with Case Keenum in Denver, as you guys said, because I don't know what happened to John Elway. I think he, took a vacation after that lose Super Bowl and decided that he was just going to be the worst president ever. And he's in the same league as Jerry Jones. And, so it's, I don't know what the heck's going on there. And, and Pat Mahomes, I think he's going to be exciting to watch. And Andy Reid's is a solid coach, as you can attest to, Kyle. So I think we're good there on that. I think the Chiefs take the second place if it's any consolation, but I do think the Chargers do take that division. So moving on, AFC North, Steelers are 13-3, good run. Ben Roethlisberger with that balanced attack, Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, always a solid defense there in Pittsburgh. Ravens surprisingly take second place, 9-7. Bengals, and of course the seller, everyone's joke. The butt of everyone joke in the NFL is the Cleveland Browns. So, Phil, we'll start with you. Do the Steelers repeat, or does Cleveland do something, or maybe a combination of the two? Who wins the division?
I have the Steelers repeating, but I don't have the Browns being the seller.
Oh God. Who do you have the
I have
seller?
the Bengals.
The Bengals being the seller.
Yes.
Oh, wow. This is
I
going to
mean,
get fun. This has finally gotten fun.
We just went on this whole rant of Jason Garrett, and you could say the same thing with Marvin Lewis.
Ooh, good call.
Is that true?
No, you're right.
I mean, that's a team that's been quite dysfunctional for quite some time.
Dysfunction that works, though. It's arguable.
Well, it doesn't work when you're not winning. Yeah, Baltimore, I think they have I think they're still in a rebuilding stage. I think Flacco won a Super Bowl, got a contract, but reality, he's not elite. I think the Browns, are they going to be a playoff contender or whatever? No. Do I think they'll be improved? I think so. They've added the weapons to improve, to at least make a jump. So I'm not saying they're going to win 8 games. Hey, I think they'll win 6 games. And I think the Bengals, if they win 5 games, good for them. But, yeah, I think so. I think, if Josh Gordon can become the receiver that we think he can be and stay out of trouble, they traded for
Jarvis. He is the receiver we all know he can be. He just needs to stay clean. That's the problem.
Yeah, he just needs to stay off, the weed. They traded for Jarvis Landry. They have Tyrod now there and Baker for the future. But, I mean, Tyrod's probably the best QB that they've had in quite some time.
That's a
so
true
they have the stuff to be at least going the right direction.
All right.
So, and I think their running back's Carlos Hyde. And, he's not a great running back, but he's ideal. So they have the pieces there to at least jump and not be this doormat. I think that's going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, to be honest, this year. So,
all right. So Kyle, what Steelers?
AFC North. I did circle the Steelers. They've won 3 out of the last 4 for the divisional title. Ben Roethlisberger is turning 36, and they have a new offensive coordinator. But I think with their talent at running back with Le'Veon Bell, I think they do have enough to get it done and win the division here.
Okay.
I don't think the Browns are going to be terrible. Obviously not 0-16 terrible. I know a lot of fans have gotten exposure to them through being the HBO Hard Knocks team this year. But, whether they go Tyrod Taylor, whether they go Baker Mayfield, there was a recent comment that was made from a former Eagles player, Michael Kendricks, that said that he believes there's more talent in the locker room in Cleveland than there was in the Eagles locker room. Now, whether you want to debate the merits of that, I think he has a point that they are getting better. I mean, they just have to overcome this loser culture they've had for many, many years. I mean, the list of quarterbacks they have it's a laundry list of people who have tried and failed there, including, my alma mater, Texas A&M's own Johnny Manziel, which obviously did not work out here or the Canadian Football League. But I wrote down on my research that I thought the Browns could win 6 to 7 games.
Oh, wow.
Which, I mean, obviously coming from 0, that's a huge improvement.
That's a quantum leap, yeah, for sure.
And the Ravens, I would piggyback on what Phil said. I never thought Joe Flacco was that elite. I thought he was an average quarterback at best that just had an unbelievable defense that helped them win that Super Bowl. When you guys have guys like Ed Reed, you're going to be pretty stout. So I'm curious with the Ravens, if at some point they don't end up making a switch and go with Lamar Jackson at some point. If Joe Flacco gets hurt, obviously, then they'd have to make that switch. But are they sticking with Flacco now, or are they going to start gearing toward the future and go with Lamar Jackson? Their cornerback, Jimmy Smith, is suspended 4 games, so we'll see what kind of impact that has.
Sure.
And then in Cincinnati, I mean, Phil had mentioned Marvin Lewis. But let's talk about, and Bear, I'm sorry if this steps on a nerve for you, let's talk about Andy Dalton for a second. I know he's TCU greatness. You probably have a statue of him in your backyard. But, I mean, he got sacked.
It's in the works, Kyle. It's in the works.
Reveal your Andy Dalton tattoo to your fans, please. But he got sacked 39 times last year. And so they went out and they got themselves a left tackle, obviously to protect him. But, I mean, they just had horrible protection for him. I felt bad for the guy. That he's just always getting meleeed there. But, I mean, they do have a talented running back in Mixon, who I got to see several times. A buddy of mine's an OU season ticket holder, so I got to see him at the college level, and I actually wanted him to be a Philadelphia Eagle as well. But I mean, you look up and down this division. Ben's getting older, but I think at the end of the day, even with him turning 36, Antonio Brown is still this, the elite class of wide receivers. I circled Pittsburgh in the AFC North.
All right.
Which we'll agree on, I think.
No, we're actually not. Here we go.
Hey, hold on a second, folks.
I think Pittsburgh is a balanced attack. I think Pittsburgh is fantastic. I think they're good. They're going to be second place in the division this year. I think this is it, guys. We're going to completely disagree on this. This is fantastic because this is what it's all about, right? I am agreeing. I think Cleveland does make. I think they win 5 games, so I think we got 5, 6, and 7 for our wins for the Browns, and that's great for them. Good for them. They're still not going to make the playoffs, but they're on the right track, hopefully. Because let's face it, an iconic franchise like that, needs to have a rebirth at some point. But I think the Steelers find a way to crawl into the playoffs, but they're going to be second. I do think the Bengals are going to win the division. I think this is the year. I think it is the year. I think this is the year because if it's not the year, then I think you both are right. I think Marvin Lewis is finally out. I think Andy Dalton is out. I think they blow up the whole thing and they start completely from scratch and they end up being the Browns for a few years. But I think this is the year because I think Andy Dalton's tired of being second rate. I think he is a leader. I know he's a leader, and I know he's got that locker room of the island of misfit toys that the Bengals seemingly put together with a lot of guys with some somewhat questionable character and discipline problems and just flat weird people. Pac-Man Jones was on the team for a while. I mean, just a cast of characters is the Cincinnati Bengals, and I think they win the division this year. But I think the Pittsburgh Steelers end up being in second. So shifting to the AFC South, I do think I'm going to go take the lead on this one. I do think the Texans improved from being in the cellar last year. I do think that Deshaun Watson is for real. I think he is a great quarterback. I think he was a quarterback built for this league. I like Deshaun Watson, except for I don't like the Texans to win the division this year. I think another example of what I think the Bengals will do is exactly what the Titans will be doing this year. I think Marcus Mariota is a make it or break it season. I think they need to actually do something. I think Andrew Luck's comeback doesn't mean much because I think people are confusing Andrew Luck for Aaron Rodgers. He's not. He's a great quarterback, don't get me wrong, but he is not Aaron Rodgers, so therefore he is not going to lead them back to the promised land. And the Jaguars, yeah, they were 10-6 last year. That was fantastic. They have a great defense. Again, fantastic. That's awesome. They also still have Blake Bortles as their quarterback. So that's kind of where I see it. I think the Titans finish at top. They were second last year, so it's not that big of a stretch. But I think it's a breakout year for Marcus Mariota. Kyle, what do you think?
As far as the division winner here in the AFC South, I think the Jaguars fit that mold of teams that can win at a very high level with a great defense and an average quarterback. We've seen that before, right? We just discussed the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, I was going to say, right?
Flacco, average quarterback, great defense. I mean, that does happen. The Colts, I'm not convinced, even with a new coach going over there. It's just Andrew Luck was elite, but now that he's hurt and he's coming back, there's just so many question marks about him. I'm not convinced that he's good enough to turn it all around. Sure. So I would probably see them rebuilding at some point. The Texans, I just wrote the media darling. Like everyone, it seems like the media is really pulling more. Just like a bunch of people are high on the Chargers, a lot of people are really high on the Houston Texans. And I mean, 2 words, Deshaun Watson. If he comes back and he's in, all of his glory, I could easily see him winning the division.
Sure.
If he's injured, if he has a slump, I could easily see the Jaguars win this division. So I actually selected the Jaguars.
Okay, Phil, what do you think?
I like Houston.
Oh, wow.
I think I like Houston. I think defensively, it's a question mark if J.J. Watt could be healthy. And same thing, I guess, a little bit with Javon Clowney. But I think offensively, I mean, until Deshaun Watson got injured, Houston was a threat for that division. And let's be fair, the Jaguars kind of won it because Houston kind of tapered off because their backup QB was horrible. Well, Tom Savage, whatever it was. If Deshaun comes back 100%, they have Lamar Miller, who's a good running back. They have DeAndre Hopkins, who is a really good receiver.
Sure.
I think, they can win that division. They showed something those first 6-7 weeks before Deshaun got out, before he tore his ACL in practice. So I like Houston. Jaguars have a great defense. That's great. But Blake Bortles is still a question mark. Mariota, I don't think Mariota is in a somewhat make or break year. I think that offense, we're going to see what Derrick Henry can do as the guy at running back because DeMarco Murray has now retired. And if he follows the trend of Alabama running backs, not so well. And then the Colts, Andrew Luck can have this comeback. That's great. But if his offensive line is still horrible, then what's the point?
Exactly.
And I don't even know who their running back is because Frank Gore retired, if I'm not mistaken, or he's not there.
They're bringing back Trent Richardson out of retirement. I think that's the goal, right?
Well.
Frank Gore, former Eagles great for 5 minutes.
Yeah, for 5 minutes. I bet he regrets that. I bet he regrets that decision heartily. I bet he's so, yeah. But no, I like Houston. Last year, let's also be fair. Houston had a huge distraction because of Harvey, the hurricane.
Yeah.
And they were able to be that good. Now, with a proper offseason, with kind of just not that distraction, they could have a little bit of what New Orleans had with the Saints about a decade ago, just kind of, we're back, we're at home, let's go for it. And I don't think they'll make the noise that New Orleans made that year, but I think Houston can win that division. I think it's going to be a very competitive division.
Yeah, it took us almost the entire time to pick division winners. So that's good. So I got Tennessee. Phil's got Houston. And Kyle's going with the repeat in the Jags. So last division, Phil started a fire a little bit ago when he said that the worst team in the NFL, at least if I understood him correctly, is going to be the Buccaneers. So do the Saints repeat? Who takes the NFC South? Phil?
Gosh, I think that's between Atlanta and New Orleans, to be honest. I think that's going to be – I think those two games when they face off is going to be very exciting because it's going to be high scoring, high affair. We're talking both teams in the 30s because both teams really don't have a good defense. Carolina might be in the mix, but it just depends of what Cam does and if Christian McCaffrey can take that next step. If I had to flip a coin, I like New Orleans because I know Ingram's out for 4 games, but I think that they're better off than Atlanta because Atlanta was horrible last year offensively. So that's still a big question mark. I'm not on the whole Jalen Ramsey, Matt Ryan sucks. No, if you want an MVP, you don't suck. So as for the division, I like the Saints, and the Bucs are going to be the worst team in the NFL.
Fantastic, Kyle.
This is the one that when I was taking my notes, I wrote, this is the division that most intrigues me for various reasons. Carolina, they're on their 3rd defensive coordinator in 3 years. So that intrigues me on that side of the football. Is Cam Newton going to be this elite force in the NFL like we saw him in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago? Obviously, they didn't win it. But is he going to return to that former greatness? That's a huge question mark for me. I have a buddy that's actually the announcer at the Gulfstream Park in Florida. He's an avid Carolinas fan, and he he assures me that the Panthers will return to their former glory this year. I'm not so convinced. But, Atlanta, it just seems like mentally they were broken after that Super Bowl. When you had such a huge lead and then lost it to the Patriots, it just seemed like they were kind of lost in the wilderness for a while. They still have talent there. Will Matt Ryan be, the prolific passer that he normally is? Calvin Ridley, what kind of impact can he have? Atlanta intrigues me in this division, certainly more than Carolina. But I still think at the end of the day, this division, the most complete team is the New Orleans Saints. Sean Payton's still an unbelievable, would you say top 5 offensive mind in the game right now? Maybe top 10 at least. He's –
Oh, yeah, easily.
I would say top 5.
Easily top 10.
Easily,
easily top 10, arguably top 5. Yeah. I
would say top 3.
I didn't think it was that much of a stretch, but I would say, top 5 offensive mind. Obviously, you have a quarterback in New Orleans who's pretty darn prolific at passing. So I see Drew Brees. I know he's getting a little long in the tooth and his career is closer to the end than it is the beginning, but I see the Saints coming through this division. And to Phil's point, in Tampa, I'm actually thankful that Jameis Winston's suspension is the first 3 games because the Eagles play them. So I'm hoping that'll be an easy W for the Birds. But I see the Saints winning. At the end of the day, it's always about the Eagles.
There you go. So we're back.
Even if Jameis Winston started, you are going to beat the crap out of them because that is their franchise in such disarray. They've been in disarray ever since they fired John Gruden, to be honest. So that
was a nice little Super Bowl run there.
It was.
We're back to our repeat ways, guys, because I'm in agreement with you. I think New Orleans repeats as the division champion. So I will say that I'm thrilled. I'm ecstatic, enthralled, and I am so proud to call you two gentlemen friends that neither one of you picked the Carolina Panthers to win the division, because I think Cam Newton is a tool, a fraud, and a falsehood all wrapped up in a human body. And it makes me so happy to hear you not pick them to win the division. But I think, Kyle, to your point, I think you're absolutely right. The offensive power that New Orleans brings to the table, they have obviously improved on defense, which was their terrible weak point. I did not see them making as big of a turnaround last year as they did. They did. I thought this was going to be the year that their defense had improved dramatically, because it is a franchise that I feel like gets it right eventually. I think they're well run enough to where, like, oh, we're weak here, we need to improve, we need to build and develop talent on this side of the football, in this particular area, in this particular position, or whatever. I think Drew Brees is still Drew Brees, and he's not Tom Brady and he's not Aaron Rodgers, but he's the third guy that gets mentioned every single year. And anyone who doesn't think that he's a top 3, top 4, worst case scenario quarterback in this league is outside their mind, or plays too much fantasy football and thinks that that's all the way that worlds. But thank you guys. Boo Cam Newton, go Drew Brees. Saints win the division. So,
and Bear, they were one play away from the NFC Championship.
Yes,
a heartbreaking, rip your heart out, stump on the ground play for the Minnesota Vikings from being in the NFC Championship. And honestly, sports gun to my head, I don't know if the Eagles beat the Saints in the NFC Championship. I really don't. I had much more doubts about them than I did the Vikings.
I would have said the Saints. I would have said the Saints would have won that game. But again, to the point earlier, I had the Eagles losing every single game in the playoffs until they finally got to the Super Bowl. I thought that was the only game they could win. Right. So
I take that back a bit. Kyle,
you're going to pick Cam Newton now, Phil. Come on now, don't do it.
No, I'm going to ask the question.
We're having fun here now.
Game was the game cold?
I wasn't there.
Was it cold? Yes,
it was cold. It's Philadelphia in January.
There's another element there. New Orleans is a dome team.
Correct. Yeah,
they're a dome team.
Oh, okay.
So there is
elements.
Yeah, good point. Absolutely. All right, guys. So let's wrap this up with our final pick of the evening. Who wins the Super Bowl? Phil, who wins the Super Bowl?
I have the Rams versus Steelers, and yeah, I hope the Rams win.
Oh,
that'd be
man.
nice.
Jared Goff, Super Bowl champion. Oh, my God.
Hey, you know what? You went this whole thing on Drew
Phil's
Brees
buying the beer for the entire year if that happens.
Yeah, that would be no. You went this whole thing on Drew Brees. I feel that's where Jared Goff is at. Drew Brees was not the QB he was until he came to New Orleans. No one ever thought that Drew Brees would be this guy. So I can see Jared Goff in Sean McVay's system. Like I look at Sean Payton at New Orleans, can he be that type of guy? We'll see. But that's who I like. I think it's going to be between the NFC, the Rams versus the Eagles, maybe the Vikings, but I think it's going to be those two. That game's going to be fun to watch, or not fun to watch, either way, between me and Kyle.
We won't watch it together.
We should because we can watch a game and still respect each other.
Someone's got to drive Phil home if it doesn't go his way. So
no, I'm not a Cowboys
or
fan.
if it does for that matter. Actually, if it does for that matter.
No, I could totally watch a game, and if we lose, I mean, I'm not a Cowboys fan, so I can just totally act, hey, y'all won, fair play, not, blame the refs, blame this, blame that, etc. You see it all the time. And then the AFC, the Steelers, I don't know. I think they slept on the Jaguars last year. I think that's why they lost to them. They didn't take them serious. In hindsight, they should have taken them serious because if they would have beaten the Jaguars, they would have faced the Patriots. They probably would have beaten them too because when they face off in the regular season, the Patriots should have lost to Steelers. If it wasn't for a BS goal line call, the Steelers would have won. So I don't know. That's my pick.
Fantastic.
I'm tired of seeing the Patriots in the Super Bowl, so I'm picking the Steelers.
So the Rams over the Steelers. Kyle, who's your pick?
Oh man, I mean, I think I'm going to have to go with Tampa versus Cleveland. I want to really step out on a limb here, boys. No, I mean, oh man, I've tossed and turned about this. I don't want to be a homer and just pick my team because I think it's so hard to repeat. Oh geez, I would probably say Minnesota coming out of the NFC versus probably the Patriots again.
Okay. So who wins it?
I think Brady will get one more and then ride off into the sports sunset.
Oh,
I know. It drives me crazy, but I just think him losing the Super Bowl, it's like, nope, can't go out on that one. He'll conquer the world one more time, and then we'll all be rid of him, and we'll exercise that demon once and for all. But, I mean, my dream scenario, if I could have it and actually pick it the way I want it, I would love to see Philadelphia versus Pittsburgh, all Pennsylvania Super Bowl.
Oh, that'd be great.
East versus West.
That would be, yeah.
That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But I do see Minnesota coming out of the NFC.
All right, boys. So this is you heard me say that I thought the Bengals were going to win the division, but I told you Pittsburgh was going to be second place and they were going to get into the playoffs as the wild card, right? So yes, the Pittsburgh Steelers will be in the Super Bowl this year. They will be in the Super Bowl because the Bengals will win the division. They'll get into the playoffs and they'll lose the first round. That's how they do it. But Pittsburgh will be in the Super Bowl this year, and they will be facing Kyle. I'm with you, man. I think the Minnesota Vikings, with that defense, the solid play of Kirk Cousins, not the stellar. He's not a stellar quarterback. The solid play of Kirk Cousins, the solid defense that the Minnesota Vikings have. I think the Minnesota Vikings end up in the Super Bowl against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think Big Ben brings it home for the Triple Bs. Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, and Big Ben bring a Super Bowl championship to the city of Pittsburgh. That is my pick. Pittsburgh wins the Super Bowl this year. So I have Pittsburgh. Kyle has, oh my gosh. So you have, so who did you have winning it? You have,
I said the Patriots last time.
Patriots one time. So Patriots, Steelers.
Throw up in my mouth.
And Phil's the only one to pick an NFC team. Phil's going to go with his boys, the Rams. You know what? Got to give all the credit in the world for Phil taking his own team, man. I absolutely love it, man. I have an NFC team as my fan. I'm a Packers fan, so I have the NFC locked down, hopefully. Man, I would love to see that. If the Packers don't go to the Super Bowl, I'm going to be right there with you, man. I'm going to be right there with you, Phil. I love your Eagles too, Kyle, because that was a great win for you and our good friend Joe to see that. I know you guys have been waiting for.
Yeah, that was cool. That was cool.
Great run. Great run. Gentlemen, I kept you for way, way, way longer than I said, but I appreciate it. I thought we had a lot of fun tonight. Thank you so much to both of you. Phil, get some rest, man. I know you got to work tomorrow. You're the man.
Not this guy.
Kyle, actually, Kyle and I have the day off because, Kyle needs a lot of days off because he teaches middle school children, and I just happen to be lucky. So, guys, I really appreciate it. So, for everyone out there, thanks for staying with us. Thanks for sticking around. Really appreciate all those likes, shares, comments. This was a little diversion from takeaway from ELOSOFUMARTAKES. We decided to go away from cigars. We will be talking with Richie Otero of PDR next week on our 45th take. It'll be awesome. So you definitely want to tune in next Sunday at 9:30 p.m. Central. Richie Otero of PDR Cigars will be on with me as my guest. It'll be awesome. Our September schedule is forthcoming. Everyone enjoy the NFL kickoff. Enjoy the NFL season. For Kyle Schmeltzle, Phil Schmitz, my two distinguished guests tonight, live from the Casa Cueva studios of Euless, Texas, I'm Bear Duplessis, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.